All right, let's dive into some deep stuff today. We're tackling Jean-Jacques Rousseau's The Social Contract. We've got excerpts from book 1 and some key parts of books 2, 3, and 4. So this deep dive, we really want to help you understand like the core of Rousseau's ideas. Government, individuals' place in society, and how to build a just world. Oh, and get this. Even though it was written way back in 1762, Rousseau's work is still super relevant today. We'll be connecting his ideas about sovereignty, liberty, and that general will to things happening right now.
Yeah, it's amazing how Rousseau's ideas still have this power centuries later, and they're still shaping political discussions. He really gets to the bottom of how we function as societies.
Okay, let's rewind back to the start. Rousseau's State of Nature. That time before societies formed, before organized anything. What's his view on like human nature in this raw pre-society state?
He describes humans as naturally free. In the state of nature, their main drives are self-preservation and well-being. But here's the thing. He doesn't see this pre-society life as some perfect paradise. Actually, he's got that famous line, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains."
Chills, literal chills. Everywhere he is in chains. What are these chains? Like if we're supposedly free in the state of nature?
It's a powerful image, right? These chains, they represent, well, all those limitations and inequalities that pop up when humans start competing, competing for resources, for power. In the state of nature, yeah, the strongest might dominate. But real freedom, real security, those are hard to come by. It's that lack that pushes people to create societies. It's like this longing for something better, a way to work together and actually flourish.
So it's not that humans are inherently bad or anything, but power hungry by nature. But the situation, the circumstances create these chains.
Exactly. It's not about being morally bad, but more about, just the natural dynamics. What happens when you have individuals without any structure, without a social framework?
I find it interesting how Rousseau uses the family as an example, like a model for how political societies form. It's almost like drawing this parallel between a ruler and a father and the people as the children, everyone bound together because they need protection and care.
That's a really insightful point, and that actually leads us right into Rousseau's big idea, the social contract. It's not, a paper contract. It's this shared understanding. Individuals willingly give up some of those natural freedoms, but in exchange, they get safety, order, and all the advantages of living in a society with laws and obligations.
Rousseau uses this super strong phrase, total alienation, talking about how individuals give themselves to the community. I can imagine some people, hearing that and thinking, hold on, giving up everything sounds kind of intense.
Yeah, it does sound extreme when you first hear it, right? But what Rousseau's trying to convey is the level of commitment that's needed for this social contract to actually function. It's not about erasing our individuality, more like prioritizing the common good, realizing that our own well-being it's tied to the well-being of the whole community.
So it's more like a shift in focus than a complete erasure of the self.
Yeah, exactly. Think of it like joining a team. You might have to give up some of your own personal preferences, but it's to achieve this shared goal that benefits everyone, including you.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. It's like I give up the freedom to stay up all night partying if it means my neighbors can get some sleep. And in return, I get that same peace and quiet when I need it.
Perfect example. It's this exchange. You surrender certain freedoms and you gain others. Things like civil liberty, protection of your property, the strength of being part of a united community.
And Rousseau even talks about property in relation to this total alienation. So our possessions are somehow connected to the community.
Yeah, he believed that even though individuals have the right to use their property, the community ultimately holds power over it. It's about preventing those crazy wealth gaps and ensuring that property serves the common good, not just individual greed.
Okay, so we have this social contract where individuals choose to be part of a system that ideally helps everyone. So that brings us to another huge concept, sovereignty. Who is really in charge in Rousseau's perfect society?
This is where it gets really interesting. The sovereign isn't, a king or some ruling class. The sovereign is the general will, that collective desire of the people, focused on what's best for everyone. It binds everyone equally.
This general will. It's powerful, but also maybe a little tricky. I mean, if we're all bound by it, what about individual liberty? Doesn't it start to sound like, a dictatorship of the masses?
That's a question that comes up a lot with Rousseau. He makes this distinction between two types of liberty. First, you've got natural liberty, which is that unrestricted freedom you have in the state of nature. And then there's civil liberty, That's the freedom to act within the boundaries of the general will. It's a freedom that actually becomes possible because you have a just society.
So it's about like finding that balance
Yeah.
between individual freedom and what the community needs.
Exactly. Think of it like traffic laws. We all give up the freedom to drive however we want, but in return, we gain safety and order because we have a system where everyone follows the same rules.
I see. It's about recognizing that true freedom often comes with certain limitations, as long as those limitations benefit everyone and are agreed upon by the community.
Right. And think about serving on a jury. It might not be convenient, but it's a duty, a civic duty that's essential for a fair justice system. By doing that, you're helping yourself and the community.
That's a great example. Okay, so we've got this general will and this civil liberty, but there's something else here. Rousseau isn't exactly a fan of representative democracy, which is, well, the system most of us live with today.
You're picking up on that, huh? Rousseau was very skeptical of it. He believed that when you elect representatives, it distorts the general will. Instead of people directly expressing what they want collectively, the representatives often end up prioritizing their own interests, or the interests of certain groups.
He's saying by electing representatives, we're basically giving away our power and only getting this tiny bit of freedom during election time.
That's a pretty good summary. He used the English Parliament as an example, arguing that when you elect representatives, you hand over your power as a sovereign, leading to a situation where the true voice of the people gets lost. The decisions made don't really reflect the general will.
Wow, Rousseau he's not holding back. That's a pretty serious critique of the way most of us vote. It really makes you think about the systems we, just take for granted.
His critique is still a point of debate, even now. It challenges us to ask, how can we design systems that actually reflect what the people want? Systems that genuinely work for everyone.
That is a huge question.
Yeah.
And it's one we'll keep exploring as we delve deeper into how these principles translate into actual governing structures. Okay, so we've covered the social contract, the general will, but how do those big ideas actually work in practice? When it comes to governing, I know Rousseau talks about different types of government.
Oh, yeah, he definitely does. Democracy, aristocracy, monarchy. He goes through them all. And he lays out, like, the strengths and weaknesses of each one, depending on the size of the state, the people, all that. Yeah. And I get the sense that Rousseau is especially wary of monarchy. I mean, he even writes at one point, the essential defect of monarchy is that the king is ill-equipped to govern well. Yeah, he's pretty skeptical of monarchy. I mean, he acknowledges that maybe it could work all right for large states, those that need a strong leader to, like, unify everyone. But he really gets into the potential for corruption, instability. Putting that much power in one person's hands, it's just asking for trouble. Could easily lead to tyranny and totally crush that general will we were talking about.
Yeah, it's almost like that concentration of power it's just too tempting, even for rulers who start out with good intentions.
That's exactly Rousseau's point. He even points out this irony. Kings are told they need to be loved by their people.
Right, but the whole structure of court life,
right,
it works against that love.
Yeah.
All those courtiers and whatnot. He even suggests that normal people, everyday folks, they're often better judges of character than a king, less likely to be fooled by, flattery and manipulation.
It's almost like the king is trapped in this bubble, surrounded by yes men, people who just want to please him or use him for their own ends. Tough to see reality clearly when you're in that kind of environment. And that detachment from real life, it can lead to some pretty bad decisions that don't help the people at all.
So it seems like whether it's a monarchy, an aristocracy, even a democracy, Rousseau thinks that the key is to prevent corruption, to keep things running smoothly. How does he suggest we do that? Keep those in power in check, make sure things don't go off the rails.
Well, Rousseau is a big believer in public assemblies, regular ones. He thinks they're absolutely crucial, not just for electing leaders, but also for showing support for the government. And, most importantly, for holding those in power accountable to the general will.
It's kind of like a regular checkup for the state, where everyone comes together, make sure things are working right, and if not, they can, course correct.
Exactly. It's about participation, staying engaged, not just voting once every few years and then forgetting about it.
But wouldn't those in power try to, discourage these assemblies? It seems like they could be seen as a threat, right?
Yeah.
To anyone who wants to hold on to control.
Oh, absolutely. Rousseau knew that was a danger. He warns that even rulers with good intentions might try to shut down these assemblies, in the name of keeping the peace, maintaining stability. He saw that potential for abuse as a major reason to be really suspicious of representative democracy.
It's like that saying, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Rousseau seems to be saying the more power you concentrate, the more likely it is to go bad.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to a really interesting figure in Rousseau's work, someone who exists in this kind of paradoxical space, the lawmaker.
Ah, yeah, the lawmaker. Now, this is where things get a little mind-bending. If the people are sovereign, then where does this lawmaker fit in? What do they even do?
It's a great question. The lawmaker in Rousseau's vision is this unique figure, almost mythical. They have this incredible wisdom, deep understanding, and their job is to create the basic laws, the institutions that shape the state. You could say they're like the architects, designing a system that works with the general will and promotes the common good.
But here's the thing. They don't actually have any power to make laws. It's like they can draw up the plans, but they can't actually build the building. How does that work?
It's as if they're tapping into, I don't know, some higher wisdom, guiding the people toward the best possible system for them.
Right.
Rousseau even suggests that the lawmaker needs almost superhuman qualities, to see past individual interests and imagine what would benefit everyone in the long run.
So they need to be super influential, able to inspire and persuade people to adopt those laws, but they also need to be willing to step back, let the people, the true sovereign, make those final decisions. It's a delicate balance.
Absolutely. It raises questions like, well, who are these lawmakers? How do they get that wisdom? Can we trust them to use it for good?
Those are some big questions. And speaking of big questions, Rousseau doesn't shy away from religion either. He even introduces this idea of civic religion, which sounds both fascinating and kind of puzzling. Yeah, you're right. Religion plays a big role in his political philosophy. He outlines 3 types of religion: the religion of man, the religion of the citizen, and the religion of the priest. Each one has its own implications for politics and its own problems. Rousseau is especially critical of the religion of the priest. He argues that it weakens social unity by creating a whole separate authority outside of the state.
And he specifically calls out Christianity, saying it's not compatible with a strong, prosperous state. That's a pretty bold statement. What's the thinking behind that?
Rousseau argues that, Christianity, with its emphasis on the afterlife, on individual salvation, it can make people less invested in worldly matters, less concerned with what's happening in the state. He worries that a society full of true Christians, they might be very virtuous, but they might lack certain things. Ambition, that nationalistic spirit, even the willingness to fight for their country. And Rousseau thinks those things are necessary to thrive in a world where different powers are always competing.
So he's basically saying that focusing on the spiritual can sometimes make people less engaged with the practical realities of political life.
Exactly. He even says, and this is pretty striking, Christian troops are excellent, we are told. I deny it. Show me an example. He's definitely not mincing words there.
It's clear that Rousseau is approaching religion from a purely political angle. He doesn't care about whether religious beliefs are true or false. He's more interested in how they affect the state. Does this belief system help or hurt the functioning of a strong, unified society?
Precisely. And that leads us to another key question. Can a state actually flourish without some kind of shared purpose? A set of values that goes beyond individual interests and binds everyone together. That's something Rousseau keeps coming back to throughout the social contract.
Yeah, it really makes you think about what brings a society together. If it's not religion, then what is it? How do you create that sense of, I don't know, unity, that shared purpose that Rousseau thinks is so important?
That's the core issue, right? And Rousseau does offer an alternative, this idea of civic religion. So it's a set of beliefs, values, things that promote, civic virtue, love of country, following the general will.
Wait a second, though. Didn't he just spend all this time criticizing Christianity and other religions, saying they interfere with the state, and now he's suggesting a new kind of religion? It seems a little contradictory.
It does seem like he's walking a fine line there, but Rousseau's civic religion, it's supposed to be different. It's more basic, stripped down, without all the dogma and rituals. It's more about creating that shared sense of duty, patriotism, not about enforcing specific, theological beliefs.
So it's like a secular faith in the state itself, believing in the common good, putting the community's needs above your own wants.
Yeah, you could say that. Rousseau argues that this kind of civic religion, it's essential for a strong state, especially when you have, internal divisions or threats from outside.
It's interesting to think about how that idea, civic religion, how it would work in today's world. I mean, we're so diverse, so many different belief systems. Could we really find that common ground in a set of, I don't know, shared values?
That's a big one, and it's something we're still debating today. Rousseau gives us like a framework, but finding the answers, that's an ongoing process.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive into Rousseau's social contract. I mean, we covered so much: state of nature, social contract, different types of government, even religion. What stands out to you as the most thought-provoking part of all this?
You know, for me, it's Rousseau's belief in the general will. It never wavered. He really thought that if people could put aside those selfish interests, embrace what's good for everyone, well, a just and thriving society was possible. Whether we can actually achieve that, and in the world we live in now, that's a question worth thinking about.
It really is.
Yeah.
And his ideas about sovereignty, liberty, the general will, they're still relevant today, still sparking debates, making us think. Centuries later, he forces us to confront these fundamental questions. You know, what does it mean to be part of a society? How should we govern ourselves? What does it really mean to live in a free and just world?
He pushes us to examine ourselves. What kind of citizens do we want to be? What kind of society do we want to build? He believed that a state's strength comes not just from laws, but from its citizens. You know, how much they participate, their moral character.
Yeah.
So the question he leaves us with is, I think, how can we contribute
in
our own communities to a general will that truly benefits everyone? That's something for all of us to think about.